Welcome to Midnight Archives, a place where mysteries unfold under starlight and the unknown is whispered softly, like snow falling at the edge of sleep. Tonight, as your eyes grow heavier and your breath slows, we invite you to leave the day behind. Let your thoughts drift, your body relax, and your mind wander gently toward the cold slopes of 1959 Russia. There, beneath snow and silence, 9 hikers disappeared into the white hush of history, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions, faint footprints, and a quiet that still lingers. This is not a story that demands answers. It is a memory wrapped in mist, a whisper, and now, as we step into the past, let it unfold slowly, like snowfall on a forgotten trail. Our story tonight begins on the frozen edge of the Ural Mountains at a place now known as the Dyatlov Pass. There is a town tucked away in the folds of the Ural Mountains. A place so quiet, it seems to hold its breath in winter. The name is Ivdel, and in late January of 1959, 9 young hikers arrived there, their cheeks flushed red from the cold, their eyes bright with anticipation. They were students, engineers, strong, capable, and full of youth. They'd traveled by train, by truck, and finally, on foot, each step drawing them deeper into the white wilderness. Here in Ivdel they would gather the last of their supply, dried fish, warm layers of wool, and they would laugh in their final hours of warmth, bundled in coats, sipping tea, unaware that this would be the last town they would ever see. As the wind brushed snow from the rooftops, they made their final plans. The pass ahead was unnamed, but after what would come, it would carry a new name forever. On a small wooden platform, before the forest swallowed them whole, they posed for a photograph. One hiker lifted his camera, and the shutter clicked capturing smiles, snowflakes frozen in midair, and the laughter of friends who had no idea that this moment would become a memorial. Look closely at the photo. Can you see their joy, their innocence, the heavy backpacks strapped tight, the wool caps pulled low, the way they leaned into each other for warmth? This is the last known image of them alive together, framed forever in silver and shadow. And now we leave behind the world of telegraphs and train stations, and step into the hush of the forest. The trees grow thick here, tall, endless pines, rising like black needles through drifts of white. The group moves silently, boots crunching over ice, their breath like ghosts in the air. They follow a narrow trail, compass in hand, logbook nestled in a leather pouch. Each night they pitch their tents, and each morning they press forward. The forest is not hostile, but it is vast, and it watches. Birdsong has faded. Now only wind through branches, and the rhythmic sound of snow. The deeper they go, the quieter the world becomes, and in that silence, a kind of magic begins. They stop near a frozen river, surrounded by dark trunks and drifting snow. A campfire is lit, small, flickering, but bright. They sit around it. One strums a mandolin softly, another scribbles in his journal, and someone laughs a quiet, tired laugh that melts into the cold. The flames dance in their eyes, reflecting something ancient, something timeless. Above them, the sky yawns, open, revealing stars that shimmer like frost. The Milky Way spills across the heavens, and for a moment, the world is perfect. There is no fear here, only friendship, and firelight, and snow. By morning, the fire has gone out. Ash lies cold in the snow. Their breath rises in plumes as they lace up their boots and tighten their scarves. A fresh snowfall blankets the earth, covering their footprints from the day before. It is as if they were never there at all. The forest is eerily still. No birds, no cracks, no wind, just the hush, like the world holding its breath. They move deeper into the pass. The map grows less certain. The sky, a uniform gray. Snow falls in slow, soft sheets, wrapping the mountain in silence. And still, they go on. Ural was part of the group at first. He had joined his friends for the journey, shouldering his pack like the others, ready for the challenge ahead. But fate had other plans. His old illness returned an aching back, joints that stiffened with each step. And though it broke his heart, he turned back. The others waved goodbye as he faded into the trees, promising to meet again. He never did. Yuri would be the only one to survive. For the rest of his life, he would carry that weight, the warmth of farewell, and the silence that followed. The group moved higher now. Their final camp was pitched on the eastern slope of a mountain called Kolats. In the language of the local Mansi people, it means mountain of the dead. But to the hikers, It was just another peak. The terrain was steep, windblown, exposed. Strange that they chose to stop here in the open, away from the shelter of the forest. Maybe they had lost daylight, maybe they wanted to prove something. The snow fell harder that night, and sometime after dinner, something happened. Something none of them had planned for. Something that would never be fully understood. Weeks passed. No one heard from them. Families grew anxious. Search teams were sent, and then they found the tent, half buried in snow, slashed open from the inside, not unzipped, not torn by wind, cut deliberately from within. Their belongings were raincoats, boots, journals, food untouched. It looked as if they had fled, barefoot, into a blizzard. Why would they do that? Why would experienced hikers leave warmth and safety for the freezing dark? There were no answers, only silence. And snow. Down the slope, near the edge of the forest, the first two bodies were found. They were barefoot, dressed only in underwear, curled beside the remains of a small fire. The bark above them was stripped, as if someone had tried to climb the cedar tree. Their hands were raw, their skin burned, possibly from clinging to the flames too closely. They had tried to survive, gathered branches, built warmth. But the cold was stronger, much stronger. Death had crept in like fog, slow, silent, certain. 3 more were found between the cedar and the tent, one face down, in the snow, arms stiff at his sides. Another reaching back, frozen mid-step. They were spaced apart, as if they had fallen one by one, trying to return, trying to make it back to shelter, to each other. But the wind had erased their tracks. Only their bodies remained, still cold, scattered like shadows across the slope. Whatever drove them into the night left no trace of itself, only this strange, quiet desperation, as if they had been running from nothing. It took weeks to find them, buried beneath 4 meters of snow in a ravine. The last 4 bodies were discovered. These weren't simple deaths by cold. One had a fractured skull, 2 had shattered ribs, 1 was missing her eyes, her tongue, and yet there were no external wounds, no bruises, no cuts. It was as if their bodies had been crushed from the inside. But by what? No animals, no signs of struggle, no blood, only stillness, only snow. Their clothing was torn, but not randomly cut, as if shared between them, passed from the dead to the living. They had tried to stay warm, tried to survive, but whatever happened in that ravine ended everything. Odd readings came from their clothing. Detectable radiation, far above normal levels. Why? They had no equipment that would expose them to such materials. Some of the clothes had been taken from earlier bodies. Could one of them have worked with something radioactive, or had they encountered something unnatural? The investigators took note, but the official cause of death remained vague. And compelling natural force, a phrase that meant little and everything. The case was closed, but the questions had just begun. The cedar tree stands like a sentinel at the edge of the forest. Its bark was torn, high branches broken, scattered below. Someone had climbed it, in desperation, to escape something, or to see. But what would make a man, barefoot in a blizzard, scale a frozen tree? Some say it was fear, others say it was instinct. Above the cedar, the sky offers no clues, only stars, cold, distant, watching. To the Mansi people, sacred, quiet, avoided. They believe spirits guard attention, beings tied to the snow and stone. The hikers likely did not know this, or if they did, they didn't believe. But when locals heard what happened, they were not surprised. Some things, they said, are not meant to be disturbed, and sometimes the mountain keeps what it's given. Some believe it was the wind. Not any wind, but infrasound, a rare atmospheric pressure that vibrates at a frequency too low for the human ear, but felt deeply in the body. It can cause panic, dread, nausea, disorientation. Imagine being trapped in a tent, unable to hear the sound, but feeling it trembling in your chest, making your heart race. Could this explain the sudden flight? Could the wind have whispered fear into their bones? No one knows for sure. But on that open slope, the wind was strong, and it was not silent. They did not run. The footprints told the story, .com/orderly, as if they walked barefoot, half-dressed into -30 degree air without panic. That is what makes it so strange. They didn't scatter. They didn't hide. They moved slowly, in a line, into the dark. What did they see? What did they believe was worse than the cold, Whatever it was, it called to them, and they answered. Back at the cedar, the fire burned briefly. The two hikers there had made a last stand against the cold, gathered branches, sparked flame, tried to stay alive. Their hands were burned, maybe from feeding the fire too closely, maybe from desperation. The branches above them, torn violently. One had climbed, both had died soon after. The others had moved on, into deeper snow, deeper night. When the bodies were brought back, something was off. Their skin tinted orange, hair grayer than it should have been. Most dismissed it as chemical exposure during preservation, but others saw something darker, radiation, poison, or something the body produces when it's pushed beyond what it can endure. A final transformation, written in flesh, the kind that doesn't make sense. Because this story doesn't. They had built something, a nest of branches and snow near the ravine, where the final four were found. Someone had tried to survive. Not just hide, not just wait. They had arranged their space with care like they knew they wouldn't need. The injuries found there were terrible, as if they'd fallen from a great height. But there were no cliffs, no drops, just snow and time. The files were stamped and stored. Death by unknown compelling force. The official cause, a phrase that explains nothing. It wasn't an avalanche. It wasn't a storm. It wasn't each other. What, then? What force unknown and compelling could frighten 9 experienced hikers into barefoot exile? Into the dark, into death. The mountains do not answer. They only echo. They carried notebooks, not just for maps or records but to remember. In the snow-scattered remains of the tent, one diary was found. Pages smeared with frost, ink frozen in place. The last entry ended abruptly, as if something had interrupted them. What would they have written next? A warning? A goodbye? We'll never know. The words stopped there, like breath held too long. Zolotariev was older than the others. A veteran, a guide, and he brought with him a mandolin. Sometimes, at night, when the fire had dimmed, he would play soft strings echoing through the trees. The others would hum along. Music held them together. It reminded them of home, of warmth. The mandolin was never recovered. Maybe it was buried in snow, maybe left behind in the scramble. But in the hush of the pass, it's easy to imagine its final note, fading into the wind. Among the recovered belongings was a damaged roll of film. Developed later, grainy, ghost-like images emerged. One showed blurred figures near the tent. Another a hiker, possibly Zainida, smiling in the snow. And then, one frame, overexposed. Almost black, a figure at the edge of darkness, too distant, too unclear. Was it one of them, or someone else? The image is debated to this day, but it's cold. Stillness feels heavier than any scream. The forest speaks in silence, and the mountain in stillness, but there are other tongues, ones we cannot hear. Patterns in snow, the posture of a frozen hand, a torn scrap of fabric. These are the Dyatlov group's last words, not spoken, not written. They speak in the language of shadows, and we are left to interpret their grammar of fear. Yuri Yudin lived for decades after the others had died. He became a geologist, a quiet man. He never forgot them, never escaped the thought, it should have been me. When he looked at the photographs, when he saw the shoes he left behind, now worn by his lost friends, the silence grew louder. Yuri never claimed to know what happened, but he visited the graves, often. Sometimes, memory is heavier than truth. None of the bodies bore signs of violence. No cuts, no bruises consistent with a fight. Even the worst injuries appeared internal, as if pressure had built inside them, as if something crushed them, without touching the skin. The snow was undisturbed, the tent orderly. There was no chaos, just absence, like something had passed through them, like a shadow moving through glass. Rescuers described the place as quiet, unnaturally so. No birds, no rustle. Even the snow seemed to fall more slowly there. One man said he felt watched. Another refused to return. The mountain was not angry. It was patient, like it had waited for them. And now, waited again. Some reports, unverified but persistent, spoke of glowing lights in the sky the night the hikers fled the tent. Orbs, pulses, spheres of green and orange. Locals told stories of strange lights long before 1959. They were never investigated fully, but some believe that night the sky looked down, and the earth answered. Avalanche, hypothermia, paradoxical undressing, military testing, infrasound, aliens, secret weapons, escape. Each theory tries to make the mystery smaller, simpler, easier to carry. But every answer creates more questions, and the truth, if it exists, lies somewhere beneath the ice, somewhere time refuses to touch. Decades have passed, new investigations, new conclusions, and still, no one knows what force caused 9 healthy, experienced hikers to flee into sub-zero darkness barefoot. Maybe we aren't meant to know. Maybe the Dyatlov Pass wasn't asking to be solved, only remembered, only whispered about. In places like this, the searchers found the prints first, a scattered path leading away from the tent. They were shallow left by stocking feet or bare skin, not the hurried scatter of panic, but a strange, deliberate walk, parallel steps, paired off, measured. Some stopped, but none ran. It was as if they were drawn away, step by step, into the dark. Among the things recovered, a piece of chocolate, a camera still loaded with undeveloped film, a pair of glasses, a comb. These fragments of everyday life, now scattered across snow. Some of their possessions had been traded among them: shared clothing, layered garments, signs of adaptation, of care, of desperation. They had not abandoned each other. They tried to survive. Some of the hikers had planned to send postcards from their journey, simple notes to loved ones. We made it. The snow is beautiful. We'll be home soon. Those cards were found, unsent, unfinished, words written with hope, never mailed, never read. A moment frozen between what was and what could have been. Snow has its own silence, thick, muffled, dreamlike. In Dyatlov Pass, that silence was complete. No wind, no birdsong, only the hush of snowfall, blanketing the evidence, covering the steps, concealing the screams if there were any. It's hard to know where fear ends and cold begins. What remains of the tent now is preserved in photographs, torn, sunken, flapping softly in the wind. The ropes, once tight, now slack. The flap, once zipped, now sliced. Snow has filled its corners. Time has faded its color, but the questions inside it have not faded. The ravine where the last bodies were found was deep, but not visible from above. Some believe they fell by accident. Others say they crawled there intentionally, perhaps to hide, perhaps to escape. They died with signs of hope around them, makeshift shelter, layers of borrowed clothing. They tried. They really tried. Some scientists returned years later. They studied airflow, terrain pressure system. They noted the strange patterns of the wind and the pathopotential for vortices, low-frequency tremors, sound that could unsettle the mind. They offered no proof, just possibilities. Nature has many voices, and not all of them are kind. Visitors to the area today speak of strange feelings. Cameras malfunction, GPS fails. Some hear footsteps in the night. Others feel watched. They leave offerings. They walk lightly, not in fear, but in respect, as if the mountain remembers, and the snow does not forget. In 2019, the case was reopened, 60 years after it was closed. New technology, new theories, but the conclusion was the same: an avalanche, a natural cause. But many were unsatisfied. The injuries didn't match. The footprints made no sense. The final report offered closure, but not peace. And still, Kolatsiak or Rizzos, wrapped in snow, surrounded by trees, the wind moves through it, unchanged, indifferent, beneath its surface. The story sleeps, not solved, not silenced, just waiting, like breath. Held in the dark, the searchers found the prints first, a scattered path leading away from the tent. They were shallow left by stocking feet or bare skin, not the hurried scatter of panic, but a strange, deliberate walk, parallel steps, paired off, measured. Some stopped, but none ran. It was as if they were drawn away, step by step, into the dark. Among the things recovered, a piece of chocolate, a camera still loaded with undeveloped film, a pair of glasses, a comb. These fragments of everyday life, now scattered across snow. Some of their possessions had been traded among them: shared clothing, layered garments, signs of adaptation, of care, of desperation. They had not abandoned each other. They tried to survive. Some of the hikers had planned to send postcards from their journey, simple notes to loved ones. "We made it, the snow is beautiful, we'll be home soon." Those cards were found unsent, unfinished, words written with hope, never mailed, never read. A moment frozen between what was and what could have been. Snow has its own silence, thick, muffled, dreamlike. In Dyatlov Pass, that silence was complete. No wind, no bird song, blanketing the evidence, covering the steps, concealing the screams if there were any. It's hard to know where fear ends and cold begins. What remains of the tent now is preserved in photographs, torn, sunken, flapping softly in the wind. A scar on the slope. The ropes, once tight, now slack. The flap, once zipped, now sliced. Snow has filled its corners. Time has faded its color, but the questions inside it have not faded. The ravine where the last bodies were found was deep, but not visible from above. Some believe they fell by accident. Others say they crawled there intentionally, perhaps to hide, perhaps to escape. They died with signs of hope around their makeshift shelter, layers of borrowed clothing. They tried. They really tried. Some scientists returned years later. They studied airflow, terrain, pressure system. They noted the strange patterns of the wind in the past, the potential for vortices. Low frequency, sound that could unsettle the mind. They offered no proof, just possibilities. Nature has many voices, and not all of them are kind. Visitors to the area today speak of strange feelings. Cameras malfunction, GPS fails. Some hear footsteps in the night. Others feel watched. They leave offerings. They walk lightly, not in fear, but in respect, as if the mountain remembers and the snow does not forget. In 2019, the case was reopened, 60 years after it was closed. New technology, new theories, but the conclusion was the same: an avalanche, a natural cause. But many were unsatisfied. The injuries didn't match. The footprints made no sense. The final report offered closure, but not peace. And still, collared, cycle rizzers, wrapped in snow, surrounded by trees. The wind moves through it, unchanged, indifferent, beneath its surface. The story sleeps, not solved, not silenced, just waiting, like breath held in the dark. A small monument now stands near the site. A stone marker, the names etched in Russian, worn by wind, touched by snow. Each name holds a story: Gorzino, Lyudmila, Rustam, Yuri, Samayan, Alexander, Georgi, Nikolai. Their lives frozen in time, their voices still. They were young, full of songs and jokes, diaries filled with sketches, puns, and plans. One wrote about building a snowman, another joked about Stalin watching them from the clouds. There was laughter, there was joy, and then there was only silence. That's the part that stays with you. The laughter cut short. Snow continues to fall on the pass, soft, relentless, indifferent. It buries what we try to remember, but underneath, the story remains. The earth remembers. It always does. Some believe they never left, that their energy lingers looping in time. Snowshoe prints circling the slope, glimpses in photographs, static on recordings, as if they are still walking, still searching, unable to go home. What happened on that night in 1959 will never be fully known. Too much time, too much snow. The story is like a dream, fragmented, unfinished. We know how it ends, but not why it began. And so we listen, and wonder, and drift. One of the hikers had a sealed letter in their belongings. It was addressed to someone back home, unread, never delivered. The ink had smudged slightly from moisture. No one knows what it said. A confession, a love letter, a final message. Some words are never meant to be spoken, only carried. When snow falls in the pass, it lands softly, muffling all sound. But if you stand still, sometimes you hear things. A gust that sounds like laughter, a creak that sounds like a bootstep echoes, perhaps. Or memory, or maybe something deeper. Nothing was stolen. The money was there, the food, the gear, the clothes, whatever came for them. Wanted nothing material. It didn't rob, it didn't take. It simply ended. A presence that left no mark, only absent. Chapter 4:9. A shared fate. No one was left behind. They stayed together, even as they scattered. even as they fell. Some tried to return, some huddled for warmth, some climbed, some built, but they never left one another. That's what haunts and comforts. Cold doesn't scream. It doesn't chase. It just waits, patient and still. It seeps in slowly and takes everything. It has no face, no voice, only touch. But in Dyatlov Pass, maybe it wasn't the cold they feared. Maybe it was what came before. Books have been written, films produced, investigations reopened. Each retells the tale, adds a layer, a theory, a new voice. But the hikers never speak. Their truth lies beneath snow and stone, unmoved, unwritten. Maybe, in their final moments, they felt warmth, huddled beside each other, looking at the stars, thinking of home. Maybe there was no fear, just exhaustion, just breath and heartbeat, slowing into stillness. A final exhale beneath the northern sky. The wind still moves through Dyatlov Pass. It winds between the pines. It whispers across the slope. It knows what happened. It was there. It keeps the secret well. Today, the snow still falls on that lonely ridge. Travelers hike to the site. They leave offerings. They say prayers. But the mountain says nothing. It accepts what is given, and gives nothing back. The pass is quiet again, as it was before, as it will always be. And now, we close this chapter in the Midnight Archives. There's no twist ending here. No final revelation. Only stillness. Let the snow settle over what we've seen. Let the last flickers of firelight fade into the cold air. You've walked beside them, felt the weight of wonder, and now, it's time to rest. The mystery doesn't need solving tonight. It only needs to be held, gently, quietly, like the hush between heartbeats. The Dyatlov Pass remains untouched by certainty, but within its silence, we find something else, a strange comfort in not knowing, a kind of peace. So now, let your thoughts dissolve like breath in the cold. Let your eyes soften, your shoulders sink, and let the mountain fade from view, because this is where the story rests. And so can you. You are safe, you are warm, and you are no longer searching. Thank you for joining me here, in the Midnight Archives, where some stories stay unfinished because their beauty lives in the quiet, between the facts. If this mystery stirred something in you, let it settle gently. And if you dream tonight of snow, or stars, or soft footsteps in the dark, know that you're not alone. We'll be back again, with another mystery, softly told. Until then, rest deeply, sleep well, and good night.